Historic Marlow Ferry. Today it's the site of a quiet little community in the heart of Baldwin County located on the Fish River. As you can see, it features pristine waters, a local view that cannot be beaten. People come here because it's quiet, it's close to locations such as the other municipalities in the county and Mobile, but at the same time it offers a natural beauty that can't be rivaled anywhere in the southeast. At one point in time, however, Marlow Ferry was an incredibly busy, bustling community. It was the site of course, the ferry, which ran across the river from the point where I'm standing now to the far side of the river. Initially, it was used to ferry wagon loads of people and goods across, and then into the 20th century, as automobiles came into use, they were also ferried across the river here. On into the 20th century, Marlow Ferry was the site of an agricultural exchange. Crops grown in Baldwin County were shipped via boat from Marlow Ferry to the markets in Mobile. Beyond that, this was the site of the Union disembarking on their way to fight the last battle of the Civil War at Spanish Fort and at Blakely. Farragut's troops and his gunboats made it as far as here to Farragut's Basin, the widest point in the river where they had to turn around. Troops landed here. There was an actual pontoon bridge built here at one point in time to ferry troops across the river on their way to Spanish Fort and Blakely. Into the 20th century, this was the site of a store, and as I've already said, it was a point of exchange for agricultural goods, where items such as watermelons, potatoes, were loaded onto ships here and carried to market. It has been a community of transition in Baldwin County. It has been, at one point in time, a very business-like venture here with the ferry, and now it has come full circle to become one of the most beautiful, quiet communities in the county, where residents, local, and also visitors come to see the beauty of the water, the pristine natural habitat, and fishermen enjoy disembarking here on fishing adventures all up and down the Fish River and even into the bay. So Marlow Ferry offers some of the best attributes of Baldwin County. Its natural beauty, which you can see, and its rich historical heritage, which you've just heard about and will see in the video you're about to watch.
This is a very historic area. Right where we're standing, you know, over 50 years ago, when I was a young boy, we used to come down here, and actually we'd come down here on the other side of the river over here on the west side, and we would gather here and try to think that we could swim this river. And as a teenager, you know, that was a pretty dangerous thing, but we would, somehow or another, we made it across here and didn't get drowned. But there was a store right here where we're standing, and on this site, and it was just a wonderful thing to come in this little old country store here and be able to go in there and get a cold drink or a candy bar or something, and then just have fun here, and then spend an hour or two here, and then swim back across the river. But you know, Mother would send us down here sometimes to get something, you know, that was convenient to come to a little small store, and just the camaraderie of being able to come to this site. Other times we come down here, we had a boat with a small motor, and we'd ski around on the river here. And we'd actually put in on the other side over there. And we would go in here and swim and ski up and down the river, have a great time. And then there was a ferry here, and it was a wooden ferry, and it had a big cable, like a chain, that you could pull it across the river. And sometimes you might see a horse and wagon on this thing. You might see an old Model T car or something on that thing, or some passengers. And actually they would pull it from right here where we're standing across the river and carry whatever they had across by pulling that chain. And we would help them pull the thing across the river, and then when they get over to the other side, the car or the horses or whatever was on the ferry would just disembark there, and then maybe some would be over there wanting to come back over here, and we'd have to pull this thing back across the river. And you've seen pictures of this probably in some of the buildings around the county. A lot of history here. Later on, since I've been on the commission here in the last 5 years, we've been able to secure some property along this line over here on the south side of this area to expand the parking area here and make it much more convenient for citizens of the county to come down here and use this facility. And actually, we was able to secure that boat ramp. We did not have that boat ramp until the last 5 years. And we had the spot here where, you know, this park is, but we didn't really have the boat ramp. And so it was sort of like you got a park, but you still don't have any way to put the boats in until we bought this extra piece of property that became available. So this is a wonderful site here. It's a lot of history here. And I tell you what, I couldn't think of anything better to be out here like today. It's just so beautiful and gorgeous, this whole area is. We love it, and I think the neighbors are glad to have it a part of the county.
Clint Boehm with the Alabama Gulf Coast Convention and Visitors Bureau has headed up over the past couple of years a special project to identify Civil War sites in Baldwin County and in South Mobile County. The Civil War Trail, which extends itself through the two counties, creates signage on various different sites, including Marlow Ferry, that give visitors a better understanding of the Civil War activities that took place here and at other places in the county.
Our CVB worked along with the Mobile Bay CVB and some other great partners like the County Commission to put together some signage at various sites throughout the two counties that really took our Civil War history to another level, the information about our Civil War history to another level. Lots of folks are familiar with the great assets we have in Fort Morgan, across the bay at Fort Gaines, and further up in the county at Blakely. But what we found out when we talked to some historians was that there's great history all through the county where those troops moved, how they got from one place to the other, the experiences they had along the way. It was a great project, and like I said, thanks to a lot of great partners, we have now about 25 signs in about 10 or 12 locations across the two counties. Here at Fish River, these are some great stories about how they actually crossed the river, how they dealt with the rain during the time that they were making their troop movements. So it's a little look actually into the day-to-day life of the Civil War soldier, as well as the bigger story of the campaign, the Overland Campaign and the Battle for Mobile.
Clint, if you would, please tell us a little bit about the evolution of the signage that you guys have worked on, getting all over Mobile and Baldwin County, what it took to put the Civil War Trail brochures together, where people can find those, and some of the other locations, if you would.
Okay. We started the project with basically an inventory of the sites around the two county area that had prominence, that we knew we could document some things that happened during the campaign. So we located those and talked about those in a brochure, a beautiful piece that we've got. From that, what we wanted to do was help folks really experience what happened along the trail. Some of the sites, as we talked about, Fort Morgan and Fort Gaines have lots of interpretation already, and there's bricks and mortar there you can see. Some of the sites, like this great Fish River site here, people wouldn't know what happened here. So we started talking with landowners, with other organizations that were involved in Civil War history and in property around the counties. And so we found, I think there are 25 sites on the trail altogether. We couldn't put signs at every site, but we found some great locations to talk about specific things. Most of them are in public areas where folks can come to a park like this, or even if they're on private property, the businesses have agreed to let folks park and come out and try to get a glimpse of what the soldiers were going through during that time.
What we portray here on the eastern side of the ferry site is a Union Advance Party, an engineering group here to test the soil for the pontoon bridge and to also scout the local area. The gentlemen that you'll see in the video are part of an engineering group that were sent out in advance to prepare for the troop movement that would take place here in the spring of 1865.
We have come up the Fish River with the intention of finding a suitable crossing for the Army, particularly the supply trains and the artillery. What we have found here is a ferry crossing with two good approaches, one on each side, with suitable roads and soil that will support pilings for a pontoon bridge. In very short order, we intend to conduct construction of a pontoon bridge across the river, and the entire Army will move to the north. We're the initial scouting party for that pontoon bridge. What we've come to do is find a suitable site. This being an old ferry appears to be a suitable site. You have roads on each side that are traversable by wagons and our artillery. We don't have to do a lot of construction to cut into the bank to get the approaches to the proposed bridge. The soil appears to be suitable for sinking pilings. We do not have a lot of current here. We should easily be able to put pontoons in the river and lay planking over them, so we will have a bridge to the other side very, very soon. What we were doing on the bank that you observed us doing was taking preliminary tests of the soil. We do not have all of our digging equipment here, so we use swords and bayonets to check into the soil and see its composition, to see if it would hold pilings. Our concern was that the soil might be too sandy, but we see a lot of clay under there, and that will be excellent for supporting pilings for a bridge. The Army is moving from the coast to Mobile. This campaign has been long delayed for a variety of reasons. I was initially scheduled for a campaign on Mobile last year, but our Corps was diverted to the Red River in Louisiana, and it was an awful mess, terribly handled by an idiot general named Nathaniel Banks. But this Army is well organized. We are well equipped. We are firmly sitting on the coast. We're moving inland, and we're going to move towards Mobile first from the east and then swing around to the north. We intend to cut the railroad and isolate Mobile. This is one of the last bastions of Confederate resistance in the country, and we intend to crush it. The Fish River has been our supply route. Rather than come overland, what we decided to do is use the river because it's so much easier to transport large quantities of supplies by boat up the river. And believe me, we have complete control of the river. Every so often we have sharpshooters that harass us, but those gunboats can clear the river of anything. So we're well supplied up here. The Army is on its way. We have troop transports, some headed out from Fort Gaines, some coming from as far as Pensacola to reinforce us. We're building strength and we're moving inland very quickly. Confederate resistance has been light. We have seen some cavalry and they have harassed our rear guard, but we have seen no sizable force in our front. They appear to have retreated into Spanish Fort and a fort further up the river, I believe it's called Blakely. That's why we need this bridge. We're going to take significant supplies of artillery and we're going to level those forts, just like we did Fort Morgan. We started from Camp Winters on the coast, and the 13th Corps is marching inland from there. They're following our lead. We're guiding their advance. They will march to this point as a suitable point to cross the Fish River. Here they will join up with elements from the 16th Corps that are being brought in by troop transports. And we will move inland from here with the objective initially of taking Spanish Fort.
I'm here providing support, security for the engineering detachment that has been assigned here to survey this portion of the Fish River. I believe the community we're in is called Marlow. I'm not real familiar with the area. Our basic duties is just to provide the security, make sure that the engineering party is not harassed by the rebels as they do their duties. The one thing I have found on this expedition with the Major is that the engineering parties eat very well. us poor infantrymen, we do not have the rations that they do, that the engineers do. I guess they get most of their supplies from the gunboats coming on the river. So in a way, it's been a break from the normal soldiering that I would be doing down at Fort Morgan. So I've actually kind of enjoyed this. I'm originally, the town I'm from is called Hamilton, Ohio. And basically all I did in Hamilton, I had a small farm. And I am an older individual. I did see some service in the Mexican War briefly. And when was called to, when the war broke out here, I enlisted to preserve the Union. And I'm one of the older ones in the group, and a lot of people look up to me. I don't know why. I'm not smart enough after 2 wars to know better, but we had a trip here to this point. We took a 10-clad, and it was my first time actually ever being on any type of mechanical type boat. The heat was unbearable. It had to be 120 degrees inside the vessel. Most of the men wanted to be out because it was so stuffy. The smell, the cold, the smell of burning coal, the sulfur smell. It was the most miserable trip. I was sick most of the way to this point, and I was so glad to see this blessed ground when I set my foot on it. Well, it's March of 1865 now, and it's been pretty much a little over 4 years that the last time I've seen Ohio. I'm pretty much have fed up with this war. I just want it to get over with, and I want to go back home. It has been to see what I have seen, and I don't ever want to picture that again, the carnage. And I was at Vicksburg. We were fought in Louisiana. We fought at Fort Gaines. We fought at Fort Morgan. And now we're on our way to Mobile to finally end this war. And I hope to see the end of it very soon so I can go home to my family.
I'm with Company H, 54th Illinois Volunteer Infantry. I have fought in Vicksburg, Gettysburg, Shiloh, and I was wounded at the Battle of Blakely. My duties as a corporal to come and form security measures for the major here at Marlow to get this project started. I was wounded, and so I'm not much of a soldier anymore, but I do my best. I fought in 2 wars. My ancestors have fought with President Washington and at Valley Forge. So my job is to perform security and infantry type tactics here at Marlow Ferry to help to get this ferry across the river, to bring our troops across, to ship supplies, wagons, and artillery.
Guards posted by Jackson's foragers were wary of any visitors along the riverway, whether they be Native Americans, Red Stick Creek warriors, or British regulars.
My history is I was born in the Yadkin River Valley, North Carolina. My family in the early 1800s moved down to Franklin County, Georgia. Then after that, we heard the Indians was having fights with the white men down this way, and we was always wanting to keep moving on. That's the reason we left the Yadkin River Valley, because it was getting kind of crowded up there, and we wanted to get on the outskirts of civilization to get new land and to do what we could do and to better ourselves. And when we heard that the Creek War was going on, I came down here to try to get some land and traded for a while in Pensacola. And then the big Indian War broke out, and I found myself in a hostile territory where I had to either fight for one side or the other. And because of some of the things that had happened to me in Pensacola, I decided to fight on the American side in the war, although I had a lot of Indian friends in the area. So when the Indians when they did the treaty up at Fort Jackson, a lot of the Indians didn't want to abide by the treaties. Different ones had signed them and other ones didn't. And the real hostile faction, as they tell me, came down here to the northwest coast down here, what became Florida later on. And anyway, they just wouldn't abide by the treaties. And I had my sons who were supposed to come down. We were supposed to move the whole family down here to get our new land. And we found out the war really wasn't over yet, that the Indians wouldn't abide by their treaty, and they were still at war. And we heard that Andrew Jackson and some of his troops, militiamen and some mounted men from Tennessee, was going to raid Pensacola, and I just decided to help because I thought we needed to put a stop to all this stuff that was going on. And because I'd been a merchant, because I'd been trading with some of these boys, well, I hatched a plan with Andy and some of his officers where I'd put my merchant clothes on and sneak into Pensacola and act like I was trying to trade for some different things. And when I did, I went around the Pensacola area and I found out where all the troops were, and I even got a tour of the fort up on the hill, Gage Hill in Pensacola. Well, we used to call it Fort George, at least the Americans did. And I found out where all the troops were, where the artillery had been positioned. And I went back to old Andy and I told him where everything was. And we hatched a really good plan, making the British and the Indians and the Spanish think we was going to hit the west side of Pensacola. Well, we built a bunch of fires on the western road, and we had troops march back and forth around the fires, and we had them think that we was going to attack from that direction, and they put all their troops on the west side. They thought they was going to stop us. Well, old Andy, he was too smart for that. We marched our men around, and I got to be a scout for this. We marched our men around, all the way around Pensacola on the eastern side and got ready for the battle. And then when it was time to charge, the regulars charged, took the battery downtown Pensacola. We knew where everybody was, and we just made a mess of them. We killed a bunch of them and took the whole town, and we was under orders from Andy not to pillage and not to steal a lot of things because he wanted to stay on the good side of the British and actually the Spanish at that time. The British had fled because they knew they were up to no good, and they knew that they needed to get out of there or they were all going to get captured or shot. And so anyway, that's part of what I did for old Andy and did my part in trying to take Pensacola and ending this Creek War.
Today we're depicting the regulars and the militia that fought with Andrew Jackson and Davy Crockett and General Cook, defeating the British and fighting the Red Sticks in this part of the country. We're here in Fish River on the ferry landing because this is a place, an actual crossroads for these armies and these cultures in this time when it was just a whirlwind of political activity with the Spanish interest and the British interest and the Indian interest being compiled with the newly formed United States government trying to insert its interest, and people going from one side to another. Even men within the armies were getting in political fights because much of it was controversial at the time. They had had some real calamities, such as the Fort Mims catastrophe, that really inflamed people to come and join the Tennessee Volunteers to go and fight the Red Sticks, and then were immediately pressed into fighting the Redcoats. And some of the men thought fighting the Redcoats was like fighting the Red Sticks. Both of them were pestilence and need to be stopped. Others thought fighting Christian men just wasn't appropriate. But the British were pressing their political agenda here in this part of the country, and that they wanted to attack the whole United States and take back the original colonies by coming up the Alabama River. So this was a hotbed of political activity, and this area right here was the crossroads of a lot of that political activity.
The portrayal that I'm making for this particular event is Thomas Taylor an individual who lived near Stockton, had been in the area during Fort Mims. An ancestor of mine, a great-great-grandfather, Thomas Taylor, was not at Fort Mims, but was in the area. And so I chose to portray him at this time. Obviously, he was aware of the situation in this area, and I suspect that he, like other voters in the area, were enrolled in the militia. And their job on this particular mission with the Uriah Blue was a cattle killing operation. The reason they were killing cattle was to prevent the enemy from having access to that food source. So what they couldn't eat, they destroyed, they burn it. They also burn crops, again, to not allow the British or the Spanish access to that food source. And they also had problems with the Creek Indians. The Upper Creek had come down into this area, not holding to the terms of their treaty with Jackson, and they were down here to cause mischief, mayhem. As a living historian, this is an area that hasn't gotten a lot of recognition, and so we're trying to bring more awareness of the history of this area of Baldwin County to the people.
My name's Jim Bauer, and I'm just down here at the reenactment today. Just walked down to the river to see what was going on. I grew up right up the road here, about 2.5 miles. Bauer. My dad was Bauer, mother was a Mickelson. We're kin to about everybody in the area. We went to Marlow Methodist Church here ever since I was younger than my granddaughter here. Well, all my life, really. And this spot here is the spot where the ferry crossed the river. I'm sure a lot of y'all remember it was on the front of the Saturday Evening Post. It was a hand-drawn wooden ferry across the river here.